Okay, we're gonna do lesson 12-5 in math. Before we start, I wanna show you something important here. Okay, so remember when we learned about division? Okay, and let's say we have 12 divided by 4 equals 3. And we learned that there were other ways we could write it. We could write it inside the den, 12 divided by 4 equals 3. And we also learned that we could do 12 divided by 4 equals 3, correct? So now that we've been doing fractions for a week or so, what does this look like to you? A fraction, right? And a fraction is simply division, okay? So if we have 12 divided by 4, that equals 3. And let's think about this. A fraction, this is a very common one, right? Okay, if we have one candy bar and we divide it into 2, how much does each person get? Half a candy bar, okay? So 1 divided by 2 is half, okay? If we have three candy bars and we're gonna divide them by 4 people, each person is going to get less than 1 candy bar, that's what a fraction is. It is less than 1, okay? But what if, let's say I have 6 candy bars and I'm gonna divide them by 3 people, okay? So I have 6 candy bars and there's 3 of us. How many do each one of us get? I have 6 candy bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's 3 of us. Each one of us, I'm gonna get 2. Someone else is gonna get 2. And someone else is gonna get 2, right? There's 6 of them divided by 3. And what is 6 divided by 3? 2. Okay, so in fractions, if our numerator is more than our denominator, we actually have more than 1, right? And remember how yesterday when we did our number lines, right? And the first thing I told you to do was label your 0 and your 1. And let's say we were going to label 3/4 on the number line. The first thing you have to do is label 4/4 right here underneath that 1 to show that 4/4 is 1 whole, right? And then we went, okay, I have 4 sections, so I'm gonna make 3 lines. And this is 3/4, which is less than 1, right? And we know that 4/4 is 1 because what is 4 divided by 4? 1. And think about it, I have 4 candy bars and I'm going to divide them evenly between 4 people. We're each gonna get 1. I have a pizza broken into 4 parts, right? Oops, I have a pizza and it's divided into 4 equal pieces. Well, there's 4 of us coming. How much do we each get? 1, okay? So if we have 4, and we're gonna divide it by 4, that's 1, okay? So let's take a look here. I want you to go get 2 pieces of paper, okay? So pause it, go get 2 pieces of paper and come back. Okay, so you're gonna take those papers. I'm gonna come over here for a second. You're gonna take these papers, okay? These 2 pieces of paper, and you're gonna fold them each in half, okay? Okay, so now I have taken 1 piece of paper and folded it in half, right? This is 1/2 and this is 1/2, so this is 2 halves, which is 1 whole paper, right? So this is 1/2. This is 1/2. Then over here, I have another half of a paper and another half of a paper, right? So how many halves total do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a total of 4 halves, right? Is that correct? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, what's 4 divided by 2? 2. How many pieces of paper do I have? 2. So if I have 2 halves, we know that equals 1 whole, right? So if I had 3 halves, right? 1, 2, 3. If I have 3 halves, that's going to be more than 1, but not quite 2. Okay, because 4 divided by 2 is 2. So if I have 3 halves, I know that I would have exactly this. I would have 1 whole and another half. But if I had 4 halves, I would have 2 whole pieces of paper. Okay, so let's keep that in mind as we go into today's lesson. Okay. So draw 1 piece of paper and divide it in half. And draw another piece of paper and divide it in half. So how many halves do you have? You need to write 4 halves. Okay? If you added a third strip of paper folded in half, could you use halves to name how many halves you have? Okay, how many halves do you have? So if you have one paper folded in half and another paper folded in half, and now they want you to add a third paper folded in half. So how many halves do you have? Count them up. How many halves do you have? You should have gotten 6 halves, right? And what's 6 divided by 2? 3. And how many whole pieces of paper do you have? 3. Good. Okay, let's take a look at the back. All right, a bunny hopped 7/4. 7/4 the distance on a trail. How can you show this on a number line? Okay, so we have a number line and we drew 0 and 1, okay? Up here, 7/4 is what we want to label on there. First thing you need to do is label this as 4/4, okay? You know 0, 4/4, this is just what we did yesterday. 0, 4/4, this would be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, right? So go ahead and label that 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. You know this one is 4/4. What do you think this would be? How many fourths is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, and there it is right there. How many fourths is 2 wholes? Think of that. You took a pizza, 2 whole pizzas, and you cut them into fourths. How many fourths do you have in your 2 whole pizzas? Should be 8/4. And 8 divided by 4 is 2, which is 2 wholes. Okay? So the whole distance between 0, the whole is the distance between 0 and 1. Okay? And our denominator is 4. So this is exactly what we just did. Okay? So 7/4. So let's go down to the bottom of the page. Okay, 1 point on the number line below has been named with the fraction 2/3. On the number line, the lengths marked are equal. That means they're an equal distance apart, which means they're all fractions, okay? Write a fraction for the other points. Okay, first of all, you have to go in and label this number 1. So if this is broken up into thirds, how many thirds is 1 whole? Your denominator is 3. How many thirds do you need to make 1 whole? 3/3. Okay? So every one of these is going to have a denominator of 3. Okay? So if this is 2/3, how many thirds is this? I want you to fill this in. I want you to pause it, fill this in, and then come back. Okay, should be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3. Now, can you write for whole number 2, can you write how many thirds are in 2 whole, it's 2 whole, right? 2 whole pizzas. You break them into thirds. How many thirds are in 2 wholes? Should be 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Let's take a look at the guided practice here. Name a fraction that is to the right of the point for 2 on the number line. Okay? Well, I mean, it depends. Let's say we use fourths because, I mean, it depends what our denominator is, right? But let's say, okay, label your 0, your 1, and your 2. Oh, I should make this longer. Luckily, you used a pencil. We need to label something to the right of 2, so you need some space over there, okay? All right, so let's say, let's use fourths because that, well, let's use like, let's use 3 as a denominator, okay? So this is, I'm running out of space. This whole number 1 is 3/3, okay? So this should be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Should be 4/3, 5/3. Oh my goodness. I shouldn't have done that. This would be 6/3 and 7/3. This is messy. Sorry, guys. Not enough room there. But it has to be more than 2 whole, okay? So if I had 6/3, that would be 2 whole. So it has to be 7/3, okay? I know that's confusing. We'll come back to it. Okay, Quinn says that 10/8 comes to the right of 9/8 on a number line. Do you agree? Well, let's label our 8s here, okay? Label your 0. 10/8 is going to be more than 1, right? Because 8/8 is 1. So this is 8/8 would be whole number 1, right? So if this is 8/8, this would be 9/8 and 10/8. Okay, over here you'd have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8 is whole number 1, 9/8, and then 10/8. Okay, so Quinn says that 10/8 is to the right of 9/8. Is he right? Yes, because as you move to the right, the numbers get bigger. 10 is bigger than 9. So if we have 9 pieces of pizza, remember a pizza is cut into 8 equal parts, 10 is going to be bigger than that. So yes, because 10/8 is more than 9/8. Okay? All right. In number 3 and 4, each number line has equal lengths marked. Write the missing fractions. Okay, so here's our 0, and here's our whole number 1, which has already been labeled 3/3. Okay, you have to get that labeled. That whole, otherwise you end up skipping it or you don't count it right. You have to label the whole number as 3/3 or 2/2 or 4/4 or 5/5 or 6/6, 7/7, 8/8. You got to make that whole to where the numerator and the denominator are the same. So if this is 2/3, what should this one be? And what should this one be? I want you to pause it and then come back. Both your denominators need to be 3, okay? If this is 0, this should be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, okay? Number 4, here's our whole number 1, okay? First of all, you know all of these denominators are 4 because that's what it is right there. Okay? So whole number 1 has to be 4/4. Okay? They already have whole number 2 labeled as 8/4. Remember, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we have that situated. So I want you to pause it and I want you to label those other ones. Okay? So this should be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause it. I want you to do the front and the back of this. And then I'm going to show you the answers on how to do it right now. So I'm going to continue on with this. So I want you to pause it and then come back and correct when you're done. Okay? Okay, so for this one, don't do this with me right now. I want you to try it on your own and then come back, okay? So in 5 through 7, each number line has equal lengths marked. Write the missing fractions. Okay, this is divided into 2 equal parts, and we can see this has whole number 2. You have to label this as 2/2. So therefore, if this is 2/2, that's 3/2. This is 1/2. Okay, label this one as 2 halves. So we have 1/2, 2/2. The denominator has to be 2 to keep with those. So 1, 2, and 3 halves. Okay, our denominators have to be 6s. Okay, I don't see any whole number 1, so we don't have to label anything 6, 6. So this is 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6. So whole number 1 would still be over here at 6, 6, but it's not there. Okay, divide the number lines into equal lengths. So here they want you, since this is broken up into thirds, okay, remember in between each one of these, if you're dividing into thirds, you need to draw 2 lines. But first, let's label this as 3/3, okay? How many thirds are in 2 wholes? That would be 6/3, because 6 divided by 3 is 2. And this would be 9/3, because 9 divided by 3 is 3, okay? Again, if you had 3 pizzas, okay, first if you had 1 pizza and you divide it into 3 equal parts, you would have all 3/3 you would eat. If you had 2 pizzas and you divide them into 3 parts, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You would have 6/3 in your 2 pizzas. If you had 3 whole pizzas and you divided them into thirds, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9/3. So they want us to divide this into other parts. In between the whole numbers, you need to draw 2 lines because you got 3 parts, 2 lines. Okay, so 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Okay, every one of these should have a denominator of 3. Okay, so 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3, 8/3, 9/3. Okay, here we have 8s. Find your whole number 1. This has to be 8/8. Okay, so if we want 8 parts, we need 7 lines, okay? So we already have 1, 2, 3 drawn. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? Every one of these need a denominator of 8. Okay, and then you should be able to fill them in 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. Let's look at the back. Okay. The distance from 0 to 1 is 1 mile. So from school to right here is 1 mile. Okay, so the swimming pool is more than a mile. Okay. What fraction tells how far the swimming pool is from the school? Okay, we got 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6. What is this? 6, 6. So this also needs a denominator of 6, so it should be 7, 6. Okay? And how do you know it's 1 more 6th past 6/6, which is 1 mile, okay? The hospital is halfway between the grocery store and the post office, okay? So here's the grocery store and the post office. The hospital is halfway between, which must be right here. So what fraction tells how far the hospital is from school? Okay, so here's school and here's the hospital. It's 4/6 of a mile, okay? Tim has 78 board games. He has 10 boxes. Each box holds 9 games, okay? So that means that he could hold a total of 90 games, right? If Tim puts all the games he has into the boxes, how many more games can he fit? Okay, so he can hold number of games that his boxes will hold 10. He has a capacity to hold 90, right? 9 games times 10. He only has 78. So 78 plus how many more equals 90? So 78 plus how many more equals 90? Well, you know from your fact family that you can do 90 minus 78. okay? So he can fit 12 more boxes, okay? Rachel says that 7 times 5 times 2 is 24. She's wrong. She explains that she used the distributive property to find 7 times 2 plus 5 times 2, which equals 14 plus 10. Then she added them to get 14. Do you agree with Rachel? No, we do not agree with Rachel. Okay. She can't use the distributive property. She has to use the associative property. So, she needs to use the associative property. And it's okay if you didn't write this, okay? But you do need to show that 7 times 5 times 2, that, I mean, she could have done 35 times 2 and gotten 70, but she also could go, like multiply 5 times 2 first and get 7 times 10, which is 70, that's why we use the associative property. It's much easier that way. Okay, draw lines to divide the number line into fourths. Show a point at 3/4 and another point at 10/4. Okay, you have all your whole numbers. The first thing you have to do here, this is 4/4. Okay, this is 8/4, 12/4, and 16/4. Okay, 16 divided by 4 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, so if we want 3/4, okay, we want to divide this into 4 sections, 3 lines. Okay, this one's going to be 3/4. And then we're going to have 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4, 9/4, 10/4, 11/4, 12/4. So this would be 10/4. Okay, right in between there. Okay, good job.